I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it is that was anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish that set people such as Rabbi Cooper here off. Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Gavin Richard Presents here only on channel G-Boot 2786. Whoever you are, wherever you are, hope you are blessed and feeling safe during this red hot summer. I've said this before in my previous videos. This is red hot summer because we have not seen 20 a year. I think probably within, maybe if you want to say in the last 100 years, when you're talking about pandemics, like you had the Spanish flu that was going on in 1918, and of course when you have now comparing it now to COVID-19, but then on top of that, just the way things have started off in 2020 with the death of Kobe Bryant and then the racial uprisings, if you will, that have occurred since really it's been going on for a long time. It's been bubbling underneath. But it just straight set it off with the George Floyd death and Ahmaud Arbery, which happened in February. Like, I've never seen anything like it. And 2020 seems to keep getting worse and worse. But of course, whenever these things happen, there's always a distraction that the media likes to bring out. Distraction, if you will, from the real issues that take place. And of course, none has been bigger in the last 5 days than what happened with Nick Cannon and his interview with Professor Griff. Now, if you go to Nick Cannon's YouTube page, Cannon's Class is his podcast that he does. He has deleted every, if you will, conscious video that he did with someone. He's deleted videos with Tariq Nasheed. I believe Rizal Islam is gone. I believe Brother Tony Muhammad is gone. Professor Griff's interview was scrubbed. And he even released that apology. If you saw my live stream, he released that apology calling Griff by his birth name, Richard Griffin, which I know for a fact just from reading that letter and that he didn't write that. I know Nick Cannon didn't write that. Because if you looked at his tweets, you look at the things he was saying, he was all in a mental huff about what was going on. And then complaining about how black people were calling him a sellout. And they talked about this in the podcast. And black people, Nick Cannon needs to realize something. Black people didn't cancel Nick Cannon. We didn't cancel you, bruh. The Jewish community canceled you. Viacom CBS canceled you. White people canceled you because they have never been able to tell me exactly what it is that you said that was anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic. If you guys saw the last live stream I did, I broke down where the term Semite came from. All of that came from the book, if you go in the book of Genesis and you read the flood of Noah, you realize he had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Not in that particular order, but Ham was the youngest child, and Shem and Japheth were the older brothers. And Ham was cursed by Noah, or rather not Ham being cursed, but his son, Canaan, meaning Noah's grandson, was cursed, and they were cursed to be the servants to Japheth and Shem's descendants. And yet that reason, that seemed to justify, or it was used to justify by Christians, by Muslims, and yes, Jews. Because a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of people in the faiths of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, they all played a role in slavery. That's not anti-Semitic, that's not anti-Islam, that's just the truth. It's not even anti-Christianity. What was anti-Christian was enslaving a group of people based off of their skin color. Even when you talk about slavery back in the day, even during the times of Jesus, it was not chattel slavery, which we have in the United States. Those people were still allowed to keep their religion. They were still allowed to keep their faith. They were still allowed to keep their names, their original name. We didn't have that option. Our ancestors that came over here in the United States, or were forced over here, didn't have that option. And there were Jewish people that owned slaves. That's not hate speech. That's just a fact. And so, moving on though, I saw the podcast, and Rabbi Cooper, first and foremost, if you guys watched it, I watched a whole hour. It's broken up in 2 parts. The last part was 20 minutes. I think Nick had to stop filming to take a phone call. And then the first part obviously was over an hour and 19 minutes. So I sat and watched it, and I wanted to dissect exactly what was said. And basically, this rabbi who came on here, Rabbi Cooper, Abraham Cooper is his name, he said a whole lot of nothing. Like, I'm still waiting to hear what exactly it is that Nick Cannon said. And he didn't even provide that. You know what he said? He said, it's one thing if you and Griff had this discussion in a coffee shop, but rather when you have a platform and use it to millions, you ruffle those feathers. That feather comment we were talking about, Nick. So what he basically said was he had a problem with him talking about it on his platform. He didn't dissect exactly what Nick Cannon said. And then, talking about Minister Louis Farrakhan, I've noticed what was really catchy was that the Rabbi Cooper did not even address Minister Farrakhan by his title, which was really disrespectful. He would say the Farrakhans of the world, the thing with Farrakhan and Farrakhan. So he was dismissive of Minister Farrakhan from the beginning. And, as a general rule, I call people out of respect for what their title is. If he's a minister, I call him the minister. I'm not a member of the Nation of Islam, but I have enough respect for Minister Farrakhan to say that. And I would do that for any person of any faith. If I, as a Catholic, we have priests, I call them High Father. That's their title. Same thing if I saw a cardinal, you would call them Your Eminence. Or if it was an archbishop, you call them Your Excellency. There's a respect thing. There's a respect thing to it. You see the President Obama or President Trump. Even if I don't care particularly for the president. I certainly don't care for how he's behaved. But I still give him that respect. Yeah, he is the president. Of course, yes, I've used their last names before. I'm not going to lie about that. But I just know, my point is that in watching this, I just respect, I could tell by his demeanor he had no respect for Minister Farrakhan. And Nick, he called it Cannon's class, but this was really Pandering class, because I noticed Nick had apologized in that video. He said, I'm sorry. He had to have said it at least 6 to 8 times in a whole hour and 19 minutes. He said, I'm sorry so multiple times. Like, I don't mean to hurt people. But they never said what he did was wrong. They never talked about exactly what it is that he said that was inappropriate. It's important if you're going to, if you're going to have these discussions and you want to talk about building a bridge and saying how I hurt you, tell me what I did wrong. And if it was proven that I'm wrong, yeah, I will apologize for it. But here they didn't talk about that. It seemed like the rabbi was pushing, his own agenda and was dismissive of many of the things that Nick Cannon says. When Nick Cannon was talking about, and this is a good positive thing, Nick Cannon said, I will always hate white supremacy. I will always hate racism. The rabbi didn't say too much about it. Now, what I did know is that Rabbi Cooper, he is the same rabbi 30 years ago that was responsible for breaking up Public Enemy over Professor Griff's comments. Because if you remember that last live stream I told you about, in 1989, Griff, got in trouble when he was talking about Jews. He did an interview, I think it was either with Rolling Stone magazine or whoever. But he got in trouble because he talked about, it was a 1988 issue of Melody Maker, couple of things. He said, quote, if the Palestinians took up arms, went into Israel and killed all the Jews, it'd be all right. And that was a little controversy. He also said there's no place for gays. When God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, it was for that sort of behavior. That was in 1988. But then he did an interview with the Washington Times in May of 1989 when he was interviewed by David Mills, and he said Jews are responsible for the majority of the wickedness in the world. And as a result of that, Cooper was the one going on, and he even alluded to this, how he gave them exposure and so forth by having them all on the newspapers, all on CNN, because he was the one that did it. I didn't realize he was the one that was pushing that, and I didn't realize that. Now, what you also got to realize, though, is this. When you talk about, I wish the rabbi would have talked about the Rothschilds that Nick Cannon and Professor Griff had brought up. I've heard, I didn't listen to the Brilliant Idiots podcast, but I remember Charlemagne on the Breakfast Club. I saw his article where his report comments, he defended Nick Cannon when he said the Jews have the power. And let's be real honest about something here. If something is based in truth, then it's not wrong. Now, when he's saying Jews have all the power, I don't think he's saying that to be disparaging, but it's true that there are Jewish people who are in high positions, people of the Jewish faith. And let's be clear, that's a faith. That's a religion. That is not a race. Now, of course, there's what they talk about are the Ashkenazi Jews. Those are the ones who, that what you see is the white Jews that are here in the United States, as well as, Israel and so forth. And they speak, the Yiddish language and so forth. That's really traditionally who the Jews are that you see here, like Rabbi Cooper and so forth. Now, let me be clear. I don't comment on stuff that I don't know about, but I did a little research into this. Now, when he talked about Farrakhan, another thing I want to bring up, Nick, and I said this with Nick being a bridge builder, it seemed like he wanted to build a bridge. You can't build a bridge with people that are not willing to talk. Minister Farrakhan has always, from my knowledge, as far as back in the 80s, he has always gone on white platforms like Donahue. He has been on 60 Minutes. He has been interviewed by Barbara Walters with 2020 and talked about various things, and he didn't shy away from it. But I've never heard of the Nation of Islam or any other, or Minister Farrakhan for that matter, specifically come out and say, all Jews need to die. I never heard him say that. I've never heard him say, go beat up any Jew or Catholic or any other group of persons, or any other group of people based off their faith or their race. I've never heard him talk about Catholics in a certain way. He may be critical of things that people have done in that group, but I've never heard the Nation of Islam, or Minister, when I say Nation of Islam, I'm speaking of the spokesperson and their leader, Minister Farrakhan, actually say anything derogatory of that nature. He brought up the fact that he called Hitler a great man. There's a problem with that. And I'm going to read this to you, and I'm actually going to share the article, because some things that he has said had been widely taken out of context. And it's important when people say things like this that you also got to bring your sources. Now, I bookmarked this. This is an article from joshuastruth.com. Okay? What Farrakhan was talking about when he said Hitler was a great man, he was speaking in context, and I'm just going to quote to you what the article is saying here. He says here, Farrakhan called Hitler a great man. I ask, in what context? What was it, to praise him and his evil towards Jewish people, or was it a historical analysis of his power and military strength in rebuttal to a harmful comparison presented by members of the Jewish community? Let's discuss the origin of this lie. Reverend Jesse Jackson received hateful attacks by members of the Jewish community for supporting the Palestinian people. An ad was posted in the New York Times. Instead of saying "Run, Jesse, run," it made a campaign slogan, "Ruin, Jesse, ruin." The ad also bitterly accused Reverend Jackson as a danger to American Jews, to the state of Israel, and to America itself. A harmful environment of hatred for this man lingered. Reverend Jesse Jackson's very life was threatened, and Minister Farrakhan stood to defend his brother. On February 25, 1984, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke of the climate that members of the Jewish communities had placed Reverend Jackson in, the same environment that caused many leaders to be killed. I'm saying to Jewish people who may not like our brother, it is not Jesse Jackson that you are attacking. Remember this now. You're not attacking an individual. Jesse's gone past this now. When you attack him, you attack the million that are lining up with him. You're attacking all of us. That's not an intelligent thing to do. That's not wise. We know that blacks and Jews have a good relationship in the past. We've gotten along well because you're a suffering people, and so are we. But my dear Jewish friends, you must understand that everything comes of age. We cannot define our self-interest in terms of your self-interest. And because of our self-interests differ, because we've come of age, why dislike us? Why attack our champion? Why hurl stones at him? We feed the press so that they can create a climate in which hatred and bitterness and strife can be poured, creating the same kind of climate that led to the assassination of John Kennedy, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Bobby Kennedy. Why create that kind of climate when you have the power to turn it around and show the world that you have sense? Don't you realize what you're doing? Press, don't you realize what you're doing? Are you as blind as the government? And if the blind lead the blind, both fall in the ditch. You are blind. Minister Farrakhan then warns those who want to harm Reverend Jackson to leave him alone, and even calls for a dialogue between the two people at odds. I say to you as intelligent people, sit down and talk with Reverend Jackson. Sit down, Jewish leaders, and talk with us. We are ready to talk with you. Sit down and talk like intelligent people who have a future at stake. But if you harm this brother, I warn you in the name of Allah, this will be the last one you harm. We are not making idle threats. We have no weapons. We don't carry so much as a penknife. But I do tell the world that Almighty God Allah is backing us up in what we say and what we do. And we warn you in His name, leave the servant of Almighty God alone. Leave him alone if you want to defeat him. Defeat him at the polls. We can stand to lose an election, but we cannot stand to lose our brother. So from those comments, Minister Farrakhan, and this is back in the 80s, he had always built a bridge out to speak to members of the Jewish community. There are pictures that I have seen where Minister Farrakhan in his home has had pictures with rabbis, Orthodox Jews, where they've had discussions. So, where does the Hitler comment come from? I go on in the article. This comes from an emotional and irrational reaction to Minister Farrakhan's response to be labeled as the Black Hitler. This insult was thrown by Nathan Perlmutter, the former Perlmutter. I maybe mispronouncing it, but I think I said it right. Who's the former national director of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, on February 27, 1984. Then parodied by Jewish leader and then columnist for the tabloid Village Voice, Nat Hentoff. This kind of name-calling backfires on those who delight in using this comparison because it actually does harm to Jewish people, according to members of the community. When Donald J. Trump was elected president of 2016, members of the Jewish community were criticizing those who were comparing him and his policies to Hitler's. The argument was that Trump is not a new Hitler because Hitler's impact on Jewish people was much worse than Trump's presidential policies. Those who compared him to Hitler were accused of spreading a false and anti-Semitic equivalency and went as far as saying that they were denying the Holocaust, which I think is a stretch. Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz in 2016 in a Fox News interview said the following: anybody who compares Trump or anybody else to Hitler essentially is a Holocaust denier. Because what they're saying is, well, there's no gas chambers, there was no Auschwitz, there was no plan to kill 6 million people. They million Jews. They minimize it. So according to Alan Dershowitz, we can say that to even call Minister Farrakhan the new black Hitler isn't in of itself an offense to Jewish people, and that it relegates the effect of an actual murderer. By this account, we can say that those who delight in comparing Minister Farrakhan to Adolf Hitler and essentially deniers of their own suffering. Did you, Minister Dershowitz, denounce Nathan Perlmutter, the former national director of the ADL, as a Holocaust denier? Are you willing to renounce Nat Hentoff for minimizing the reality of gas chambers and the genocide of 6 million Jews? We agree with you. Minister Farrakhan is incomparable to Adolf Hitler. He has not done a fraction of the atrocities that Hitler is known for. So this came from when he says Hitler was a great man. Supposedly, that was from a March 11, 1984 speech in Chicago, Illinois, at the Final Call Administrative Building. And Minister Farrakhan was responding to an insult on a radio broadcast. Well, of course, they edit out the entire speech, and I'm going to read just what he says, and I'm going to post the rest of the article. He says here, the Jews don't like Farrakhan, and so they call me Hitler. Well, that's a good name. Hitler was a very great man. He wasn't great for me as a black person, but he was a great German. And he rose Germany up from the ashes of her defeat by the united force of all of Europe and America after the First World War. Yet Hitler took Germany from ashes and rose her up and made her the greatest fighting machine of the 20th century, brothers and sisters. And even though Europe and America had deciphered the code that Hitler was using to speak to his chiefs of staff, they still had trouble defeating Hitler even after knowing his plans in advance. Now, I am not proud of Hitler's evil against Jewish people, but that's a matter of record. He rose Germany up from nothing. Well, in a sense, you could say there's a similarity in that we are rising our people up from nothing. But don't compare me with your wicked killers. So, he did not call Adolf Hitler a great man in the sense that many people think he praised Hitler's actions for killing millions of people, especially to the Jews. And he says right there, I am not proud of what Adolf Hitler did, his wickedness, his evil towards the Jewish people. And for the record, it was not just the Jews that were attacked in Nazi Germany. The extermination camps or concentration camps that were there were also Catholics that were targeted. There were also what they call, I believe it's the Reinhardt bastards. That's the actual term, because if you saw, and I don't think anybody saw that movie, where they were trying to praise, or it seems to justify a Jewish, not a Jewish, but a black girl falling in love with a Nazi. I can't think of that name of that movie, but it was, somebody knows the name of it. But it was this, I think it was the girl, Amanda Slomberg, who starred in it. You guys know who I'm talking about. She was in the movie The Hate That You Produce, I believe is what it's called. And I actually saw that movie that she did. That was pretty good. She plays now in the X-Men movies. I think she's no, The Hate That You Give. Excuse me. Okay, I'm getting, I can mess up, but that's why we have the internet. Amanda Stenberg is her name. Yeah, Amanda Stenberg is the girl's name. And yeah, she was in that movie recently. So I'm getting her confused with the other girl. She's not in the X-Men movies. She's been in, let's see here. And she comes out, she's an intersectional feminist. She's gay, she's pansexual, okay, whatever. She was in Columbiana. Yeah, she was in that. Columbiana, The Hunger Games, Rio 2. Yeah, okay. And a movie that she did was called When Hands Touch. Yeah, that was the movie that got criticized and panned because she fell in love with a Nazi. But yeah, but those people were also targeted for discrimination. Of course, gypsies were also targeted as well. And so it's not to obviously minimize. It was a Rhineland bastard. Excuse me. I butchered it up, guys. I'm sorry. Rhineland bastards. That's what they called people, Afro-Germans in Nazi Germany. Okay, especially after World War I. Because it was believed that French army personnel of African descent were stationed in the Rhineland during France's occupation of Germany after World War I, that Afro-Germans were born from those unions between German men and African women in the former German colonies in Africa. So that's where the term came from. I'm reading it right now. It was a derogatory and racist term used in Nazi Germany to describe Afro-Germans believed fathered by French army personnel of African descent who were stationed in the Rhineland during its occupation by France after World War I. There is evidence that other Afro-Germans born from unions between German men and African women in former German colonies in Africa were also referred to Rhineland Bastarde. So that's where that term came from. Now, of course, I'm not trying to minimize Jewish people at all. And when I talked about, and I was just discussing, because I want to get back to the Nick Cannon thing, because I tend to get off subject. I wish that they had discussed more, or really that they would have allowed a debate with Rabbi Cooper and, let's say, Rizza Islam, or let's say Minister Farrakhan. What's to say that Minister Farrakhan can't come on Cannon's podcast, because from what I understand, Nick Cannon was actually there at the July 4th speech that Minister Farrakhan gave, his address. So Nick Cannon has, a platform. He has money, and I'm sure he knows the minister on a first-hand basis that he can make contacts with him. I know he has the money to do so, to travel back and forth to Chicago. But what's even important about this, brothers and sisters, when you listen to what happened to Nick Cannon, his story, and also what happened to Tamar Braxton, is that when you don't own and control your own podcast, or your own platform, I should say, rather than podcast, then you are stuck at the behest of others. And this episode that I saw, this exactly showed me who runs who. This shows me, and should show all of you, why black people cannot look to entertainers to be leaders. They cannot lead anything because they are following someone else. How do you lead when you have to follow the orders of another? The minute Nick Cannon lost his job and got fired, he's apologizing. This rabbi didn't mention anything Rabbi Cooper never mentioned anything about white supremacy. Didn't explain exactly what Farrakhan, what the issues with Farrakhan. He didn't say he wanted to debate him. That's another thing. They never want to debate the minister. They never want to talk about him. They want to talk about him and throw jabs in the media, but they do not want to have a sit down and discussion. Donahue at least had Minister Farrakhan on multiple times. He also had, he's had other people. He's had Sister Soldier come on there. He's had the founder of the new Black Panther Party, who was a member of the nation. You guys know he died in 1995. Gosh, his name is escaping me right now. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Khalid Muhammad, that's him. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. And Khalid Abdul Muhammad actually had been removed by Minister Farrakhan in the 90s from his position from the Nation of Islam. And again, I don't think it's not a matter of all Jewish people being bad. No, I don't think that. But no, and just like all Jewish people are not bad, and all white people are not bad, all black people aren't bad either. But we get stereotyped every day. We get profiled. And Jewish people at least have organizations and leaders that are immediately able to put a stop to things. And that's what Charlemagne was talking about when he said Jews have the power. But look at this. They fired Nick Cannon. They fired Nick Cannon from CBS. From Viacom CBS, from Wild 'N Out. A show he created but he didn't own. You can create something, but there's a difference between creating it and owning it. And this is the same Viacom CBS that for years had Howard Stern on their radio with CBS, who would use racial epithets to describe black people. Have Klansmen come on. This is the same network that has BET on, that owns BET, owns MTV, owns VH1, and they push these dumbass reality shows that show everything wrong with the black community. I'm not going to lie to you and say I haven't watched Love and Hip Hop before, but I know a lot of it is scripted. I know Basketball Wives is scripted, but there are young black girls who look up to these women as role models, and they are the most ratchet of the ratchet. Why is that? But no, I kind of knew and expected. I can't say I was disappointed because I kind of expected this to happen. I expected, just by how Nick acted, that this was going to happen and take place. And the fact that he was having this man come on his platform and so quickly. You notice how quick it was? That interview that he uploaded with Griff was shot, I believe, months ago. But then all of a sudden when the backlash comes, I saw the next day, Nick had a picture of this picture with him and Rabbi Abraham Cooper talking. And so it was what I expected. It was weak. They still can't tell you what you did wrong. But the fact that they won't debate with Minister Farrakhan, the fact that they won't talk with him, just shows a lot. Because they know they're going to get smoked. When you talk about the Rothschild family and the banking system, the Rothschild family, who, yes, they are members of the Jewish faith, they did create banking. And I noticed that he talked about that because he said, although he didn't mention Rothschild specifically, he mentioned stuff about, well, the Jews being stereotyped as being the financiers of everything and financiers of that. But there were Jewish, the Rothschild family are the ones credited with creating banking business in the 1760s. In the 18th century, Mayor Amschel Rothschild was a court factor to the German landgraves of Hesse-Kassel and the free city of Frankfurt, Holy Roman Empire. He established the banking business, and that was over 250 plus years? 260 plus years ago, before the founding of America. Now, am I going to group and generalize every Jewish individual, or every individual who practices in the Jewish faith, as being a penny pincher or being a shyster or anything of that nature? Of course not. No. Let's be clear. And I guess I got to put a disclaimer out, because somebody's going to interpret this as anti-Semitic. Everybody's going to interpret. Everybody can find something wrong that they don't like in your podcast and your video. So that's why I don't give a shit anymore about some of the things that I post and some of the things that I talk about. I understand, my mom tries to warn me, and I'm sure others who record here on YouTube, they try to warn you about things you say, because then you don't want to lose job opportunities. But you know something? If it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be. You speak on what's right. Yeah, you do know how to pick and fight your own battles. There's some things you could be quiet on. Of course there is. But if you're going to accuse me of something, at least have proof and tell me what it is that I was wrong in. Because so far, all I've heard is just from what this discussion was that they were upset with Nick for talking about it. There's a reason why they won't debate him, but they'll go on Cannon's class, because they know Nick, right now in the state that he's in, he makes a lot of money when he's on television. So they know how to control his purse strings. They know how to, they pull the purse, they own the purse strings. I've worked with people of all backgrounds. I've had clients that are white. I have clients that are black. I've worked with, when I went to school, there were Jewish people, people of the Jewish faith that attended Southern University Law Center. It's actually the most diverse law school in the country. There are actually at least over 45% of whites that attend Southern University Law Center, because it is while it is a historically black college and university, it's the only Southern University Law Center being a part of the Southern University system. And let me be clear, my comments these are just my comments and my comments alone. The Southern University system is the only HBU system in the country, and we have whites that go there because it's cheaper to attend law school there than it is to attend, let's say, LSU Law School, which is, say, a few miles down, a few miles south of North Baton Rouge. A few minutes away from Southern is LSU. And LSU is hell of expensive to get in. But, the Alumni Federation there at LSU, they give back a lot of money to them. And so, why so many people come to Southern is because they can afford it. But I've had racist people. There are racist people that have gone to Southern University. There are people who just go there because they're there to get their education. They're not there to make friends. And I've met Jewish people. I had a guy who I was real cool with who was Jewish. I saw him I saw him a few months ago. We still speak to each other. So I wanted to be clear that I'm not trying to, with this video, disparage anybody. But I'm also someone who's not going to sit back and lie and pretend I don't see what's going on in the world. There are people who come in our communities and make money and send it back into their communities. And it's not just members of the Jewish faith. When you look at, for instance, the recording industry, when you look at Hollywood, let's be real. Hollywood was also founded by Jewish people. Samuel Goldwyn, who helped found, I believe it was MGM, if I'm not mistaken. His grandson is Tony Goldwyn, the guy who played Fitz in Scandal, but I remember him as Carl from the movie Ghost. You know, Louis B. Mayer. These are all Jewish people. There's nothing wrong, and there's nothing wrong with it. I thought it was MGM stood for Metro, Goldwyn, and Mayer. But Samuel Goldwyn had Goldwyn Pictures, Samuel Goldwyn Productions, and I believe he also, from what I'm reading here, he played a role in the founding of Paramount Pictures. So it says here, his real name is Susmel Gelpfitz. He was a Polish. He was from Warsaw, and I know I'm not showing pictures with everyone here, but they founded what would be called Paramount Pictures. It says here he changed his name to Samuel Goldfish, but it says here Goldfish. Yeah, but it says here he, along with his brother Jesse Lasky, brother-in-law Jesse Lasky, Cecil B. DeMille, who's if you guys know the Cecil B. DeMille Award, he was a big-time director from the 1940s and 50s and made biblical epics. Author friend formed a partnership, the Jesse L. Lasky Feature Play Company, to produce feature-length motion pictures. So, in 1914, Paramount was a film exchange and exhibition corporation headed by W. Hodgkin. And then Paramount signed a contract with the Lasky Company on June 1st, 1914 to supply 36 films per year. So, when I'm saying that, it says further, on April 10, 1924, Goldwyn Pictures was acquired by Marcus Loew and merged into his Metro Pictures Corporation, becoming Metro Goldwyn Mayer. Despite the inclusion of his name, Samuel Goldwyn never had any connection with the management or production at Metro Goldwyn Mayer. Okay, well, it says he had nothing to do with it, but that's where the name MGM comes from. And apparently, Goldwyn was the one who trademarked the Leo the Lion, which you see in the MGM, any MGM picture, you see the lion do the intro. I guess that was his idea and his trademark. So I can believe that at least he gets paid, or his family or state gets paid every time MGM produces a movie with that trademark. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's been used for almost 100 years now, that logo. Goldwyn Pictures was one that started that Leo the Lion trademark. So there's nothing wrong with that. So the point is what I'm saying is when Charlemagne made that comment about Jews having the power, he wasn't lying when he was saying that. Because, yes, there are Jewish people in Hollywood that run it. There are gay people, that run Hollywood now. It's like the example I gave with affirmative action before. If you're a Jewish lesbian feminist, because you're a protected class, you qualify under affirmative action. An employer will hire you before they would hire a black man. They don't need black people anymore in the workforce. So that's why it's important that we get our own ownership of things. The Mexican community, they've taken over the workforce because they've outnumbered blacks in this country. They're now the #1 minority, and soon they will be the majority in this country. That's not racist towards Mexicans. That's just facts. Sometimes you got to tell the truth. Well, all the time you need to tell the truth. And shame the devil. That's the old saying. And if they are upset at telling the truth about history, about facts, then so be it. But the big lesson when you see this picture, guys, be an owner, not a panderer. That's it for me, guys. This has been another edition of Gavin Richard Presents here on my channel, GBoot2786. Please subscribe to the channel, like and share this video. I also encourage you to please donate to the channel. The links will be in the description. And again, I'm not trying to, disparage our brother Nick Cannon, but this looked bad, man. But I want you guys to have a blessed day. Please subscribe, donate if you can, and you will see me in the next video. Guys, I am out.